Good morning, Gabrielites. This is Mr. Lin once again. Today, we are here to look at some practical processes in continuation for our keytag coin holder project. In our last lesson, we have managed to come up with the dimensions of the 3 different layers for the keytag coin holder. Each layer, a cutout has been produced based on the dimensions that we have come up with. Now, there are a few things we need to consider. First, what are the processes required for each individual piece? 2, what are the machines and the tools that we need for each individual piece? And 3, what are the safety requirements when we're using these tools and this machinery? The tools and machinery that you're using will not be new, so I urge you to review those processes in the videos that we've put online, or look out for the teachers or the instructors and ask if you're not sure. We're going to make use of these processes that we already know, and we're going to plan how we are going to carry out the practical process for our 3 layers. Now, for each individual layer, the steps will be similar. First, we must always do marking out. So in marking out, we are taking our dimensions and place them onto the material. The next step after we finish marking out is to decide whether we are going to cut, drill, saw to remove the material. So this step is called wasting, where we remove the waste material from the actual product that we want. After we do the wasting, the next step will be cleaning. And cleaning involves smooth filing and light sanding, so that we can get the edges, the sides of our acrylic pieces to be cleaned. And finally, the last step is to do finishing. And the finishing involves usually buffing for the edge of the acrylic, polishing for edges that our buffing machine cannot reach. So these are the basic steps for each and every individual piece of acrylic. So there's marking out, wasting, cleaning, finishing. The key question is, do we do every individual piece of acrylic separately, or can we combine some of them together so that we can save some time in some of the steps? Let me use my mock-up to explain. Now this is the bottom layer of my keytag coin holder, followed by the middle layer, which is going to be placed on top, and then the top layer over the middle layer. Now, as you can see, there are certain parts of these 3 pieces that are exactly the same, while there are other parts that are quite different. So, around this edge that I'm showing now, this is the part that is generally the same. So that's the hint. Most likely these areas we can do together for the 3 pieces. However, for the other edges, for the other side and the bottom, the other side and the bottom, they are very different. The next question is, which step do we do first after marking out for each and every individual piece? Based on the original drawing, alright, this is the 100 mm by 100 mm square, which represents the actual acrylic material. These are the 3 layers. My most important consideration is this. I've established that this side, the 3 layers can be cut together, but the other side, I can't. I noticed that these holes here, because of the marking, they are actually perfect circles. So what I'm going to do is, before I actually cut any of the sides, I'm going to deal with the circles first, before I cut this side. Now this is an important concept. In any material, in order for us to drill a proper hole, we need to have the whole edge available. This allows the drilling to be done safely, as the drill bit can be placed on the material securely, and while they are drilling, they are being held around the whole circle, the whole side, so that the drill bit will not move out of position. So that is an important concept. These holes will have to be done first. Similarly, I have some cutting over here, which I may want to drill as well. So if I were to do all this drilling beforehand, I will be able to do it safely. So that is going to be our key consideration. For safety, we are going to drill these holes first. Now, most of the holes that you have drilled so far are small holes. And the drill bits we're talking about could be smaller ones like this, which is smaller than even 3 mm, all the way to about 10 or 20 mm. Alright, so these are the regular drill bits that we see very often. However, when we are drilling bigger holes and we are wasting much more material, then these drill bits might be a little bit inefficient. And this is called a different type of drill bit is called a fostner bit. So the fostner bit has got a sharp tip in the middle that functions just like a drill bit, but the difference is you can see there is a vertical cutting edge. This vertical cutting edge allows this fostner bit to scrape away material as we lower it. So you can see this later in our demonstration. So this is one way to cut slightly bigger holes. Now if you recall, these holes are the size of the coins, and we know that our coins are approximately 22 mm, slightly more than 22 mm in diameter. So this fostner bit I've chosen is 22 mm in diameter. With that, when you drill the hole, okay, it creates a 22 mm hole in the material, and we are able to clean it up with smooth file. So that will cause a slight enlargement of the hole. And we are not going to want to drill a much bigger hole like 25 mm because that will be way too loose for the coin. So 22 mm is smaller than the coin, but after we file a little bit to clean up the edge, we will be able to get just the right size to fit the coin. Now I've proceeded to do the marking out on the acrylic, and the 3 layers, top layer, middle layer, as well as the bottom layer. Now one thing to take note when you mark out on your acrylic is to try and be very consistent, as you may have some spare areas at the edge. This is why I have been asking all of us to make our design as big as possible to touch the 3 edges. So what I'm doing is I'm making sure when I mark up, all my pieces touch the top surface, touch the right surface. So it gives a good reference. So every layer designed, when we do the marking out, touch the top, touch the side. And when that is done, when we do our cutting later, it will ensure that all the 3 layers are aligned with each other. So that is critical. Like I said earlier, I'm going to start by drilling these holes and these holes onto these 2 pieces of acrylic before any other step. Alright? Because I need the material at the edge to hold our fostner bit tightly so that it's safer to drill. Okay, let's proceed to the drilling machine. Now this is our drilling machine in the workshop. You should be quite familiar with this. Now, as I said, I'm going to drill these holes, okay, using this fostner bit first. So before I start, I must check that the fostner bit indeed fits in just the size of the hole. Okay, so that ensures that this is going to be the right fit. Okay, anyway, if we're going to fit the coin, it has to be this 22 mm. Now, we have this toggle clamp, and remember the purpose of this toggle clamp is to be able, okay, to clamp any material between this wood layer as well as the clamp itself, so that it will be held in position. And this is how I clamp my material. Okay, so I ensure that I have these 2 contact points and the material is tightly fit onto the toggle clamp. So I'm going to start off drilling this hole, followed by this, and then this. Now if this becomes too close to the toggle itself, I will have to do some adjustments. So we will see how it goes later. Now remember, we have got to change this drill bit. So I'm going to have to fit the fostner bit onto the spindle. Alright, now it's important to ensure that any drill bit, and in this case the fostner bit, goes all the way up to this point. Okay, so the spindle grabs there. Okay. So open this up and insert. Okay, the spindle. Use your hand to tighten first before you use the chuck key to tighten this further. Alright, so when you do this, you could run a test and visually see that the fostner bit is rotating in its axis. So it's not wobbly in its rotation. Okay, so it's rotating within its axis. Okay, so that's what's happening. We are good. The next thing I want to do is to see if I need to adjust this table. So I could loosen up, raise or lower this table so that I can place my material properly. Now remember to take note, always have the toggles on this side, the rotation this way. So if anything happens, the toggle will hit the pillar of the drilling machine instead of hitting yourself. Alright, so rotate it this way, and I'm going to align it to the first hole, okay, roughly in position, and I'm going to lock, okay, lock, so that this doesn't move anymore. Right, as you can see, I've set up the material on the toggle clamp in this position so that you can see from the video. So I'm going to lower this. So important thing is to check that the Fostner bit is in alignment with the position that you want to drill. Okay, once you're happy with that alignment, some finer adjustments. Once you're happy with that alignment, okay, so make sure this is held tightly. Okay, so you can use your hand to hold it tightly, or you can use an F clamp to clamp this. Okay, so for this demonstration, I'm just using my hand to hold it tightly. Turn off and lower. Now I want to show you that the moment your Fostner bit touches the surface of the acrylic, you can see that there is a hole being created in the middle. Now this hole is created by the pointed tip on the Fostner bit. Alright? So with that, you can check that everything is in position once again before we continue with the rest of the drilling. Okay, so slowly. So as you can see, the Fostner bit begins to scrape the surface. Okay, first it cuts the edge of the circle, and then you can see that it starts to scrape the surface of the hole. So this scraping will continue. Now you notice I always raise and lower. Okay, and when it's done, you can see that the hole is being cut completely. Alright, try not to use your fingers to go and touch, because the surface of the Fostner bit is very, very hot. So what you can do, you can use a pen, poke it through, you can remove the material. Okay? Right, so you could also use a brush, okay, to brush off the material. Alright? So keep your work surface clean. Alright, moving on to the next hole. Okay, and you will continue to do this until all the holes are done. Now I'm doing this for the top surface as well. Okay, so similarly, make adjustments and prepare to drill the top surface. After we have drilled the holes in the top layer and the middle layer, we are ready to proceed to the wasting of the other parts of the keytap coin holder. So this is the top, the middle, and the bottom piece. Okay, when we place them together, alright, we can start to cut them together. So I'm going to proceed to the scroll saw and show how we can do this. Before I proceed to stack them together, I did a check, especially on the back portion of the holes that I drilled. What's important is to check that there is a flat surface. Sometimes trapped behind this adhesive covering is some pieces of acrylic waste. So you got to try and remove all the waste, peel off a little bit of the paper if necessary, so that we are able to stick the layers one over the other properly. So similarly on this layer, I'm going to check all this to make sure that it is perfectly flat. Okay, so there's nothing protruding. Okay, there's a little bit here, so I'm going to peel off this portion a little bit, just to make sure there's no more material that's been stuck in between. So I'm peeling off all the uneven surfaces. Okay, this flatness is critical. Okay, so the middle layer sitting on top of the base layer, the bottom layer. So we press and check, okay, that they are tight. Then the top layer over the middle layer. Again, press and make sure everything is tight. Okay, once we are done, I'm going to, like I said, push this right to the edge and the top right to the edge, and then I'm going to stick them together before I proceed to go to the scroll saw to cut all the edges. So what I've done is I've sticked using masking tape on a few locations. So with this, I can cut on this side of the workpiece. Okay, so these three are now securely held together. Okay, we can proceed to the scroll saw. Now when we're using the scroll saw, it's important for us to remember a few of the safety features, and that is especially this, the safety guard. It has to be resting on your workpiece, not so tightly, but just resting directly on top, and that helps to prevent the jumping of your workpiece. What's important is for us to also ensure that we cut outside of the line that we marked out, so that we can file and touch the edge of the workpiece. So when we use a scroll saw, we will just cut on to the outside of it, not so close. Alright, so here goes. Okay, ensure that the guard is just sitting on top. Turn on the scroll saw. As you can see, okay, just cut on the outside. All this we can file it down later. As I said earlier, once I've used the scroll saw to trim this side of the workpiece, I'm going to tape them up so that I can proceed to cut the other side, okay, of the workpiece. Same thing, ensure that the guard is sitting directly on the workpiece, and here we go. Go slowly as we approach a curve, so do not twist immediately, if not it will cause the blade to break. Now you realize I only cut a little bit of this top portion because I realized that for the other parts here, each and every individual layer is different. So for the other parts, I'm going to open up these three layers and I'm going to cut them individually. As you can see, once I remove the masking tape, okay, this is the top layer, alright, the middle layer, okay, and the bottom layer. So they each have their own profile. I'm not going to take the risk. I'm going to cut them individually using the scroll saw. Now remember to adjust your guard lower now because it's only one piece instead of three pieces. Alright, and then we can proceed to cut. Remember, be patient, and there's no need to cut very close to the marking because you can file them later. So be patient, do not do sudden twists, and give yourself enough room . So we managed to cut one piece, right? So we can proceed to cut the other pieces. For this middle piece, okay, all I have to do is to just trim this, join up with the hole, okay? So it's not going to be too difficult, okay? But we have to be very careful where we are cutting, okay? Not to cut the wrong places. Okay, so here goes. Same thing, make sure that this is tight, all right? Adjust if necessary. Always keep your fingers away from the blade. Okay, remember that. So do not turn too quickly. Be patient. And don't have to cut so close to the edge. And the second piece is ready. Alright. So now we proceed to the final piece. Okay, the top layer. Okay, the top piece, middle layer, and we have the base. Right, so these three layers put together is our coin holder. Oh yes, and remember to do some cleaning up after your work, especially if you're the last guy. Every practical session we need to cater a fair bit of time to do this cleaning up. Okay, so what we've done in this lesson is we have learned how to cut on the three pieces of acrylic, how to make use of the shape to do some of the processes together. But before that, we must recognize the individual shapes having its own requirements. So as a recap, we knew that some of these holes, okay, as well as here, they will have to be cut first using our drilling machine. So we use the fostner bit, drill those holes before we started cutting the outer edge. As you can see, using the scroll saw to cut the outer edge is pretty fast. Okay, and you are quite familiar with this. Alright, so the next step after doing all these three pieces, we can once again put them together and proceed to start filing and getting them to the right shape. Once that is done, you have finished the wasting, you have finished the cleaning, and the last step will be finishing, okay, which is using the buffing machine for the exterior edges. You obviously cannot use the buffing machine for this internal edge, so we will teach you some of the processes how you're going to clean those and finish those edges in there. Alright, I'll see you in the next lesson.